You're in reform, now you're not. What happened?
Things changed dramatically when Nigel Farage came back. His persona of being pro-British, wearing Union flag socks and all of that is really a false persona. And so I say, however well he's positioned himself in the public eye, he's not what you think.
But again, you're saying reform. Why not say this about the Labour Party then?
Absolutely, but we know this about the Labour Party. We know what they are. We know the animal. The deception is being perpetrated by reform. I think reform is every bit as dangerous, and I'll tell you why.
Welcome to the Daily Expresso. I'm JJ Anisiobi, and I ask you all the time, who do you want to see on this show? Who do you want in the hot seat? Well, you answered and we listened. So here we have Ben Habib. Ben, welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for having me on, JJ.
Now, you said off camera there that I'm going to soften you up and I'm going to hit you with the uppercut. So here's the first tough question.
Okay.
You're in reform, now you're not. What happened?
So reform, I think, had great promise. It launched as a grassroots movement championing the voices of British patriots, wishing to make the case for a sovereign United Kingdom, putting our borders back up, making policy for national interest, and so on and so forth. You know, the whole it was formed out of the Brexit Party. So the Brexit Party message went, through the DNA initially of reform. But then things changed dramatically when Nigel Farage came back. And Farage, the persona of Farage is entirely consistent with the picture that I just painted of reform in its early days. But the reality of Farage is quite different. Farage, I don't want to go too much into detail. I think viewers probably know my views on Farage by now. But Farage is a phenomenal campaigner, a great political tactician, but he doesn't have what I would call a political philosophy. His persona of being pro-British, wearing Union flag socks and all of that is really a false persona. He will pivot this way or that way depending on where he feels he needs to go in order to maximize his own personal promotion and the political positioning that he wishes to take. And so he is not the right individual to be leading a party that philosophically wishes to put the United Kingdom front and center of everything that's being done. And when he came back into frontline politics during the middle of in the 2024 general election, one of two things were going to happen. Either I was going to leave the party, which inevitably is what happened. I resigned from the party. Or there was a chance, I felt, of getting the party to democratize, because Farage actually basically owned the party.
Yeah.
And so I fought a campaign for 6 months to get the party to democratize, thinking that if I could introduce checks and balances and controls into the party, then it didn't really matter if Farage wasn't entirely true, because the body of people around him would be able to keep the party moving in the right direction. But I failed in that endeavor. Whatever they say, they haven't democratized the party. Farage is very much in control, though Zia Yusuf has an unusual amount of influence for someone who is new to politics and until I think 2024, unheard of, frankly. But so there's a kind of duo there. But when Farage started saying things like, I'm not in favor of deporting every illegal migrant, that instead of leaving the ECHR, let's have a referendum on the ECHR, when he said things like a united Ireland is inevitable, Northern Ireland will unite with the Republic. These are all repugnant statements to someone who believes in this country. And so I resigned. And that's basically why I left Reform. Yeah.
I guess people might say, okay, you don't agree with some of the stuff Nigel's saying, but surely there's no political leader in any party that everyone who's in that party will support every single thing that the leader is saying.
No, absolutely right. But you can't. Inevitably, policies are going to be made that you disagree with.
Yeah.
And you just have to go with the flow in the hope that the majority of the policies are taking the country in the direction in which you want it to go.
Yeah.
But Farage won't take reform in the direction people think he's going to take it in. And we've now seen that. I think the electorate are seeing it. It is becoming Tory 2.0. And it's infected not just with what you and I might identify as the right-hand side of what was the Conservative Party, but it's infected by some of the Lib Dems, some of the more anti-British lot, if you like, within the Tory party.
There's no Lib Dems in Reform. There's
Well,
none.
Zahawi made the case for giving asylum, a blanket asylum, to all people who had entered this country illegally. I think it was in 2013. He made the case for immigration. He was pro the vaccine mandate. He was pro lockdown.
But he's changed his mind now.
He's
changed his mind now, right?
Of course, yeah. That's what people say, they change their minds. But I call that political expediency. And the country is in such difficulty. You know, JJ, 20 years ago, when Blair came into, let's go back 30 years actually, it didn't matter so much that politicians wavered a bit this way and that way, because the country was in a pretty good place. Our economy was strong, our security was strong, we were robust as a nation. But we're not there now. We are facing what I would call an existential threat as a country. Constitutionally, culturally, economically, our very existence is being threatened. And that kind of flip-floppy politician, the career politician who'll say whatever he needs to say to get by, isn't going to cut it. We need people with principle, who've thought through the problems, understand what the problems are prepared to speak bravely about the solutions to those problems, and then stand with fortitude behind those solutions. And the flip-floppy political expedients who go from being left-wing to right-wing to left-wing to right-wing, they're not going to help the country.
But would you say Farage is flipping between left-wing and right-wing? I think most people would say that Farage is right-wing and you're even more right-wing than he is.
No, I'm not. I don't believe I'm left or right. I think, funny enough, having used that nomenclature myself, funny enough, I think it's it's an out-of-date nomenclature. There are those people who believe in running the country pursuant to global principles, the global order enmeshed in the European Union, the World Economic Forum, the UN, all of that. And I think if I were to be kind to them, it's very difficult to be kind to them, but if I were to be kind to them, I think the view they take is that if you achieve global prosperity, the rising tide will raise all ships. Yeah. And but actually, globalism has proven to be deeply damaging. And then there are those of us who believe in this country, who believe in sovereignty, nation states, or albeit cooperating on the international stage, obviously not isolating ourselves, but cooperating as independent states. Farage is in neither camp. Now, you might think he's a Brexiteer, Ben. What the hell are you talking about? For 20 years,
he has been fighting that
he
battle.
Fought the case. But the reality is, I don't want this interview to become a whole thing about Farage, but the reality is his political acumen identified in the mid-90s that there was a significant minority of people in this country who wanted to leave the EU. And he married that up with the proportional representation system in the European Parliament. And he determined, being the very cunning individual that he is, that if he made the case for this significant minority, he could assure himself 20 years or more, as it transpires, as a member of the European Parliament, having a very cushy life. And that's precisely what happened. And you might say, well, Ben, how do you know that? How can you say that with certainty? And the reason I say that with a degree of certainty is that when we won the referendum in 2016, anyone who was a true believer in leaving the EU would have used that as their launch pad. When we won the referendum, that was no time to retire from politics. If you believed in leaving the EU, that was a time now to really go on your front foot and say, right, I have campaigned for this for 20 years or whatever it is. This is what the United Kingdom now needs to do. Theresa May may be Prime Minister. This is what she needs to do. And his voice would have carried a hell of a lot of weight. But instead of coming forward with his vision, he retired immediately. He said, well, I've done my job. I got the referendum. We won the referendum. I'm off. And he did the same thing in 2020 when Theresa May failed to get Brexit done. Boris Johnson came into office. Brexit Party stood down. Famously, Farage stood us down against the Tories in the 2019 general election. At the same time as denouncing the withdrawal agreement, he effectively put it into place and then again vacated the campaigning political battlefield, leaving lesser voices like me and others to try and make the case for what needed to be done to really liberate the United Kingdom. And so I say, however well he's positioned himself in the public eye, he's not what you think.
Well, look, we had Lee Anderson on here last week.
Yeah.
He seems to think that you're obsessed with reform.
I'm not obsessed with reform.
You slag off reform. You call out what they're doing. Less so do you do this to the Tories. Less so do you do this to our government.
When I was deputy leader of reform, so the thing
co-deputy leader
of
Yeah.
reform, what you have to appreciate in politics is that every political party obviously stands in opposition to every other political party. If that weren't the case, you'd simply fold in with the other party.
Yeah.
So the notion that I'm in opposition to Labour is no more true than I'm in opposition to Reform or the Conservatives. And in some ways, Reform is more dangerous as a party because it cloaks itself in the union flag, and yet it isn't of that agenda. And so it needs to be revealed. That's part of my job, absolutely, as leader of Advance UK, a party I've set up. It's part of my job is to reveal the true facts and, the true position of reform, and then to offer up a proper solution for the country. And I do both unashamedly. I'd rather not talk about reform. If you want to move on from reform, I'd be delighted to do it.
No. Again, the viewers have sent us questions in. I've got to ask what they want to. They want to know. But you seriously think that reform are more dangerous to this country than the Labour Party?
I do.
Keir Starmer's 14, 15 U-turns trying to freeze our elderly.
I think reform is every bit as dangerous, and I'll tell you why. First of all, they are not, as I say, the true red, white and blue party that they wish the public to believe. They are rapidly becoming Tory 2.0, taking on Zahawi, Jake Berry, Nadine Dorries. Nadine Dorries, they talk about freedom of speech. Nadine Dorries was the architect of the Online Safety Act. They talk about the need to get rid of the state, from our interfering in our lives. Well, Jake Berry's pro-net zero. He was pro-lockdown, pro-vaccine mandate. Same for Zahawi. Zahawi's pro-immigration. They've got some, I thought, good people, but who've made some really bad decisions, in my view, like Suella Braverman and Robert Jenrick. So politically, philosophically, they're not there. But the other really big challenge reform's got is it simply isn't grown up. It isn't capable of running a booze up in a brewery. And I was going to use another word, but I don't think your viewers would like it. It's not capable of doing it. It hasn't, in the fight that I had to democratize the party, if I'd won that fight, it would have been able to bring in some really capable people who knew that in joining reform, they would have a voice. Instead, what it's attracted is a whole load of politicians who want to save their skin because they see the Conservative Party going down the tubes. And that's not going to save the country. So you've got a leader who doesn't have a political philosophy, a bunch of people who are responsible for creating the problems that they say they're now trying to fix, and a collective who are incapable of really truly identifying what the issues are that face the country and providing the brave solutions that are required to do it and to make the case with fortitude. And so what will happen if they win the next general election is that people will be clapping, thinking, yes, the United Kingdom now at last has an opportunity to be saved. They will fail to save it. They will create a big mess. And then the Labour Party, the Liberal Democrats, the globalist order will say, look, we gave you Brexit. That didn't go too well. We gave you Farage, your pro-British leader. That didn't go too well. Now it's time we went full tilt back into the global order, back into the European Union, more socialism, more taxation, more regulation. We'll gilt-edge net zero. All the things we are fighting for will be undermined by an incompetent next government.
So how are Advance UK going to save Britain?
So Advance UK is, in a number of ways, we're underpinned by a clear political philosophy, which is a mission statement that we've set out on our website, which puts first and foremost the nation state of Great Britain and Northern Ireland in all its parts and for all its people. So you'll never get me saying, as Farage does, that a united Ireland is inevitable. I don't see how you can have a prime minister of this country who's prepared to give up part of the country, recognizing that we are a Christian country, not just culturally, but constitutionally. And it's very important that I would describe myself as a lapsed Christian. But I recognize the importance that Christianity has played in the creation of the United Kingdom and its greatness, and all the kindness and tolerance of which we're so proud as a nation actually comes from our Christian roots. So it's very important to enforce that. That's at the heart of our mission statement. Freedom of speech, which Reform doesn't practice. They'll throw their own members under a bus like that if they tweet anything with which Reform disagrees.
But again, you're saying Reform. Why not say this about the Labour Party then?
Absolutely. But we know this about the Labour Party. We know what they are. We know the animal. The deception is being perpetrated by Reform. But we believe in freedom of speech. Freedom of our children from indoctrination in schools. Freedom of action.
But indoctrination into Christianity is okay.
That's not indoctrination. That is teaching. I'm not suggesting that we indoctrinate them. What I'm suggesting is that we teach them of our Christian constitutional roots, our Christian culture, the great things that Christianity has. One of the greatest things Christianity has done for this country, and it's really quite remarkable, JJ, is that most countries that come from a religious background, the religion looms large in their politics and in their form of governance. And over 1,000 years, Christianity found a way to absent itself from day-to-day governance, yet providing a steady hand on the tiller of the direction of the country. So you get phenomenal events like William Wilberforce, an evangelical Christian, making the case for the abolition of the slave trade, when the United Kingdom was at the pinnacle of its power, when the empire was so powerful, it didn't need to do anything. It could have just gone on taking advantage of the slave trade. It didn't. It found its conscience. So you have a form of governance that emerged in this country as a result of Christianity being part of it, which was not liberal. It was patrician. It was caring. It wasn't liberal. It was patrician and caring, and it cared about people. And the other great example that I use, I think it's worth talking about Christianity.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I'm a practicing Catholic, not a lapsed one. I'm there all the time.
I mean, my son's an Anglican. And he says, Daddy, I really wish I was a Catholic, because the Anglican Church seems to have lost its way so completely that, he finds more solace in Catholicism.
We get a lot of Anglicans and Church of England people converting across into Catholicism.
Yeah.
They're welcome.
So that's so interesting, isn't it? And for me, that means that's another symptom of the country having lost its way. Now, we don't need to be a Christian at the expense of everything else. Of course, other people can practice their belief systems. Be an atheist. Be a kind of lapsed Christian like I am. But recognize that Christianity played a phenomenal role in the creation of this country. And it has been a vast force for good in the way that we've emerged. And we mustn't turn our back on it. And we do so at our peril. The other great example I give, if I may just quickly give this example, you probably want to move on.
No.
But the other great example is William Wilberforce's son, Samuel Wilberforce, who debated Thomas Huxley in the Natural History Museum in Oxford in 1860 over the evolution of man, over whether man was descended from apes or not. It was Huxley made the case for Darwin, and they had this debate. And remember, this is the church that believes in the divine creation of man, debating an individual who was turning it on its head. They had this debate in good humor, jokes were made, and they went off and had supper together afterwards. Now, can you imagine a debate like that taking place in the United Kingdom today between some of the more fundamentalist Muslim members of the United Kingdom against someone who wishes to challenge Islam? It wouldn't be good-humoured. And you might even find that the state of the United Kingdom would cancel the individual making the case against whatever Islamic debate they were having.
Yeah.
And that cannot happen. So we've got to find our way back to that very comfortable, delicate balance that we had in our Constitution. And that's what I mean by freedom of thought, freedom from indoctrination. So we've got to teach our children what a phenomenal country we are and why we are such a phenomenal country and the role Christianity played. We've got to restore our democracy. You know, we're hijacked by the global order. We think we've left the EU. We haven't. We've got a new relationship with the EU. We've entered into a withdrawal agreement which has left Northern Ireland behind, 300 areas of law to which Northern Ireland is subject. So in other words, part of this country is under the governance of a foreign power.
Yeah.
You know, that only happens in times of war if you've lost.
Yeah.
But we've done that willingly. That has to be reversed. We need to get rid of stupid things like the International Court of Justice deciding that Chagos should be part of Mauritius, and our government taking the knee to an international court which has no jurisdiction in this country. We've got to get rid of that international order. We have to get rid of all the domestic bureaucracies that have emerged, unaccountable bodies of people that propagate their own political philosophy and cannot be removed. They're not democratically elected. They're not democratically accountable. That all has to change. And then fundamentally, the last part of our mission statement that guides us is equality under the law. And, you know, we used to have the best justice system in the world. And we now have a justice system that is hijacked by discrimination, progressive discrimination, where ethnic minorities, minority beliefs and religions and so on and so forth have a playing field in their favor. The Sentencing Council, which guides judges on how they should be handing out sentences, actually encourages judges to be lenient on those who come from socioeconomic and culturally, challenged backgrounds. Well, what kind of justice is that? That's two-tier justice. So it's not. We no longer have justice. Actually, we have a legal system, and that needs to be put right. So So it's nation state, freedom, democracy, and equality under the law that guide our party. And it'll stick rigorously to that. We're bringing new people into the party, people who haven't been in politics before, people who've had a real life, people who understand the issues of what brought us to where we are able to identify those issues. And only if you can identify those issues clearly can you then find the solutions. Find the solutions, make the arguments for the solutions, win the debate with the British people, and then save the country. That's the plan.
Well, that's a lot of things. that is a good thought out plan. My only question is that, let's say, as it stands at the moment with the polls, at best, let's say in 3 years' time, you get 4 or 5% of the total vote. You're not going to be in government. So you are essentially now splitting the right side of the vote, and you're going to put at risk reform coming in. You might think Farage and co are going to do nothing good.
I think there'll be a disaster.
Do you think they'll be worse than the Tories were 14 years and how Labour have been for the last 2 years?
I think they don't offer it. It's about people have got to stop voting for the least bad option.
That's all we've got.
Yeah.
That's all we've got, Ben.
Well, Advance UK hopes to present a really good option for the pro-British, patriotic, sovereignly orientated voter. That's what we wish to do. And the reason it's important, I have said it, but I'll say it again because it is important. The reason it's critical, actually, is because this country is in last chance saloon. Mm-hmm. We can't take much more of this. We're going to collapse. So, look, if reform suddenly develops the ability to deliver what I believe and what my members in my party believe is the right solution, we'd be the first to back down. But I don't see that happening. But in terms of splitting the vote and putting Labour back into office, this is a debate that I had to marshal when I was co-deputy leader of Reform, because everyone said, you're going to split the Tory vote and put Labour in. And first thing to say, don't vote for the least bad option. Vote for what you believe in, because that's the only way you will actually stand a chance of getting what you want, number one.
Okay.
Number two, the vote doesn't belong to any party. It belongs to the people, and they should present it to the politicians they most align themselves with. That is the democratic process. And anyone who argues for the splitting of the vote case is basically trying to hijack democracy. And, you know, it's very closely aligned with cancel culture too, because they want to say, don't listen to this guy. Don't listen to his arguments. Forget him. You know, we're the least bad option. Vote for us. Yeah. And the last thing I would say, and this is of vital importance, is that the electorate is now awake. The electorate knows that they have been thrown under a bus. They've voted for lower immigration, they've voted for sovereignty, they've voted to leave the EU, and the politicians have done the opposite.
Yeah.
And they are no longer aligned with Labour. Labour's polling 17 to 20%. They're no longer culturally following the Tory party like they used to. They're polling at 20%. People are voting reform. But there's every chance that if we can make a connection with the electorate, which is obviously the challenge that Advance UK has, if we make the connection with the electorate, we can get a very significant vote share. We are 3.5 years hence from an election. Anything is possible. And what we will do in Advance is make all the arguments I've just made and many more, reveal our policies to the British people, try and win that debate with the British people. But if the electoral mass is not looking particularly favourable for us in 2028, 2029, then we will need to do some deep, hard introspection ourselves and try and find the best path possible going forward for the British people. And we will do that. We won't sit around and say, well, come hell or high water, we're going to do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
We will be pragmatic if we have to be pragmatic. But we must make the arguments we're making. We must stand with fortitude, and we must stand in elections as we are at the moment.
Okay. You've welcomed in Tommy Robinson to Advance UK.
I welcome in every member of the British public who's on the electoral roll. Tommy Robinson doesn't represent the party. He is a member of the party. And this is another thing. It's really interesting, JJ. People say, you've welcomed Tommy Robinson in, you're now a far right, racist, xenophobic party. No. That too is cancel culture. What they're seeking to do is to get me to throw Tommy Robinson out of the party and say, no, I'm going to be virtuous. I'm going to throw him out of the party. Down that road lies no salvation. Down that road lies cancel culture, precisely what got us to where we are, denouncing our fellow British citizens. Tommy Robinson's no saint. He'll be the first to admit it. He's done stuff in the past. No doubt he'll do stuff in the future. But he has a right to a vote. He has a right to political association. In fact, it's in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 20. You have a right for political association. For all those pearl-clutching lefty loonies who keep invoking human rights, they're happy to throw his human rights away.
Yeah.
But they'll champion the human rights of all sorts of other people. No, we've got to stand with fortitude. He is a member of the party. He's not a representative of the party. He endorses us. We're not endorsing him.
Okay. Rupert Lowe.
Yeah.
Are you guys still mates?
Yeah, of course we're mates, yeah.
So what does he make of all of this? He's not part of Advance UK. Obviously, he also left Reform because before that with Nigel Farage. Why isn't he part of Advance UK?
So Advance UK was set up in agreement with Rupert Lowe, contemplating that he would be leader of the party. But he was facing a number of issues himself from Reform. There'd been a vexatious police complaint made against him by Zia Youssef, and there were complaints of bullying made against him, which he had to address. And by the time he addressed them, which I think happened in late May, by the time the police decided to drop the complaint made against him, which was late May 2025, I think he came to the conclusion he didn't want to be in a political party, that he wanted to run a movement, a cross-party movement, and maximise his voice in Parliament, garnering as much support from parliamentarians as he could to make the arguments he felt needed to be made to do whatever he could for the United Kingdom. And he's done a fantastic job doing that. But as I've said a number of times, I'll say it again for viewers who haven't heard it, the only movement I'm interested in is the one you get first thing in the morning after a cup of coffee.
I think Rupert's right, though. And I think he said this before. There's very smart people in Advance UK, in Reform, in Labour, in the Lib Dems, in the Greens, and the Tories. They're smart people. There's also a lot of dumb people in those parties too. And I think there's something in what he's saying about not necessarily having one party and just going for who you think is the best one for you personally.
Ultimately, to give effect to... Look, Rupert's doing a great job. I wish him all the best of luck with Restore Britain. And I'm a member of Restore Britain. Just to be clear,
Okay.
the day it was released, I joined. The day he announced it, I joined, which is the same day that Advance UK was announced. I wish him all the best. But if you want to change politics in this country, you can't do it through a movement. We've got loads of movements. We've got the United Kingdom movement under Tommy Robinson.
Yeah.
We've got lots of left-wing movements, other massive number of think tanks, all of whom sit around examining their navels, not really achieving much. If you want to change things, you've got to do it through the democratic process at the ballot box.
Yeah. Is Elon Musk funding Advance UK?
He's not funding Advance. He's a supporter, but he's not funding it.
He's not made any donations?
No, none. No, none.
Really?
100%. The biggest donor is me.
That's very admirable. Let's move on to Starmer. Do you
Yeah.
think it's time he quit?
So it's academic. It's a really interesting political debate whether Starmer should quit or not. But you'll just get another lunatic in charge of the Labour government, won't you? I mean, who would you have? Angela Rayner, tax-dodging Angela Rayner?
I'd stick with Starmer, to be honest. Yeah.
Or David Lammy, who thinks Henry VI came after Henry VII. Or who's the other one? Is it
Wes Streeting?
Wes Streeting, who
was good friends with Mandelson.
good friends with Mandelson, and I think when he was at university was advising clubbing right-wingers to death or something like that. And then there's another one whose name escapes me, John Reynolds, who claims to be a solicitor but isn't a solicitor.
Yeah.
Rachel Reeves, who claims to have worked at senior levels in a bank.
We
but actually
get
worked.
it, Ben.
You get it,
We
right?
get the
There's
point.
No one there.
Let's talk about your time at GB News and Talk TV, because you and I met actually at GB News. The first time we ever met was over there.
Yeah, which is, can I just say, a very pleasurable experience, JJ.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. We had a good
fun,
time together.
yeah.
Yeah. We're supposed to be opposing, and we ended up agreeing on so many things. But I feel like you were shadow banned from GB News and Talk TV for a little bit. I know Kevin O'Sullivan's brought you back to Talk TV in recent weeks, but what happened there?
So, GB News is distinct from Talk TV in what happened.
Okay.
GB News, the last time I was on GB News was the 30th of June 2025. Martin Daubney, who's a good friend of mine, remains a good friend of mine, had me on the show to discuss the launch of Advance UK, because we launched that day.
Right.
I announced it that day. And that was the last time I was on. And GB News, unashamedly, has now, I'm afraid, become the Farage channel. It won't tolerate any opposition to reform or any calling it out. And I take it as a compliment, JJ. They're obviously concerned that I pose, the arguments I make will resonate, and that I therefore pose a challenge. And that too, it's cancel culture. It's undemocratic. It's like, fine, it's a commercial enterprise. They can do whatever the hell they wish to. And when they cancelled me, I did say, you can cancel me, you're not going to stop me. And they haven't stopped me.
Yeah.
And, you've seen we've now got 40,000 members in Advance. We're making waves. I'm increasingly on media in a way that I wasn't for a number of months. I'm going back to being on my front foot with all things political. So you can't silence Advance UK, and I think GB News has made a big mistake. Talk TV cancelled me, I think, on around the 1st of, or Talk Radio, whatever, Talk, I think it's now called.
It's now called Talk, yeah.
Talk, yeah, on the 1st of August. So it came a little later. But I had some private communication with one of their presenters who said that, Ben, you're a lunatic. You're challenging reform. I'm going to do whatever I can to have you banned and to prevent you from going forward. Yeah, I have communications with one of the presenters at Talk.
Calling you a lunatic.
Calling me a lunatic.
Talk, where they used to have a guy who thought you could grow concretes. They're calling you a lunatic. That makes sense. Goodness gracious.
Anyway, but I'm very grateful to Talk for coming round and giving me the opportunity to be on the show, on their various shows. And I've been on, Kevin's obviously great, but I've been on with Jeremy Kyle and others now, and Andre Walker and maybe others, yeah.
Okay. Why aren't you running in the Gorton and Denton by-election?
We are running.
No, you personally.
Oh, me personally?
Yeah. Are you scared that you'll lose to Sir Oinkalot of the Monster Raving Rooney Party? Running scared, are you, Ben?
No, we had a great candidate from Manchester, a guy called
Nick Buckley?
Nick Buckley, who was born and bred Gorton and Denton, who started a charity there called Mancunian Way for young people who've lost their way. He's been a great guardian of the youth. He even got an MBE for all his efforts, and so he's the perfect candidate for us. He came. I think he came third in the mayoral elections in 2024 as an independent. Got 7.9% of the vote or something.
Got his deposit back then.
Yeah, got his. But that's a significant vote as an independent.
It is.
You know, you've made a mark.
Yeah.
And so he's a seasoned campaigner. He's run before twice, as it happens in elections, and so he was the natural candidate for us.
Do you know when and where you're going to run when you eventually do run?
Me? Yeah. No, we haven't got there yet. We have to get all our candidates in place. That task is starting. We've taken a very sequential approach to the building of Advance UK. First, we had the Constitution. Then we had to get to 30,000 members before I applied to the Electoral Commission, because I wanted to make sure we had a body of members which could really form a political party. I also wanted to know that the British people wanted a political party.
Yeah.
30,000 members is a significant membership. It's a vote of confidence in a new political force.
Yeah.
So we then applied to the Electoral Commission. We got permission for registration. We're now producing our policies. We announced our first couple of policies last weekend, and now we're beginning the important task, the critical task as well, of recruiting candidates for the 2029 general.
People in Britain at the moment, I think, generally we feel poorer. People feel overtaxed. People are angry at the way the country's been run the last 2 years and the 14 years before that as well. Who do you blame the most for the state of the country today?
I blame Tony Blair.
You know, a lot of people say that when asked that question. They all go back to Tony Blair.
Yeah, because what he did was repugnant. You know, we talked about the great Christian constitution and the way this country's evolved over 1,000 years. In the space of 2 or 3 years, unknown to me, I was about 32, 33 years old at the time.
You were older than that at the time, Ben. Stop lying.
I was born in 65. So in 1997, I was 32. And when he brought the Human Rights Act in, I was 33. And I was young, married. We were about to have our first child. We had 2 more children, and I was focused really on my family and their welfare, as all young people should be. And I was unaware what Tony Blair was up to, but he carried out a constitutional revolution under the radar. The creation of the Supreme Court, the independence of the Bank of England, the Human Rights Act was brought in, and these things did massive damage to our legal system, to our understanding of what we are as a country through the Human Rights Act, setting aside British citizenry effectively overnight, removing large swathes of power from elected politicians and putting them increasingly in the hands of these unelected nebulous bodies to which I referred earlier.
Yeah.
And every government since Tony Blair has followed that direction of travel. Ever increasing size of the state, more interference from the state in our private lives, greater taxation, greater wealth redistribution rather than wealth creation, killing aspiration, embedding dependency, effectively turning us increasingly into a socialist heading towards communist kind of state. And the tragedy, JJ, the real tragedy, is that David Cameron, who came in on a promise to reverse all of that, actually then took it to the next level.
Yeah.
And the Tories, instead of... To be a conservative, to be a true conservative, when you come into office, you have to undo all the damage Labour's done before you start conserving. What David Cameron did was just conserve what he inherited. And that's not conservatism. And he misunderstood his job. And, and you know, let's hope that small c conservatism finds its voice again.
Okay. Now, I'm a working class kid. I think with the working class, well, as long as I've been alive, we've always felt patronised and not listened to by the main parties. But I feel like today, that's at new levels. I think the working class today feel completely ignored. As you say, if someone working class says, actually, I'm for having borders, I want immigration controlled, people on the left are going to say, well, you're a racist then.
Yeah.
But
do you want borders controlled, JJ?
Do I want borders? Of course I want borders controlled. Of course I do.
Yeah.
You can ask whatever you want.
You racist. When I was making my... No, I was a joke.
No. Oh, thanks for confirming.
When I was making my speech, this policy speech on Saturday, we had an anti-racist mob gathered outside. And I find it rare. I opened my speech by saying, you know, you lot in this room, you must have lost your way because you as a bunch of racists. You've got a multi-ethnic guy leading you.
Yeah.
You joined the wrong party.
Well, how can the political class and I guess Advanced UK really connect with the working class and make us believe again that yes, you do have a voice and we're going to listen to you?
Yeah. So what's interesting to me is that true conservatism, not Conservative Party, but small c conservatism, is actually all about the working and middle classes. It's about creating the opportunities for the working and middle classes to improve their lot through their endeavour, giving them the skills that's needed to get on in life, making sure that a hard day's work is well rewarded, and that the rewards they get they can keep, engendering in them aspiration. The biggest driver in life, when it comes down to it, is waking up in the morning and thinking, thank goodness I'm alive. I can't wait to go. I'm so lucky. I want to go out and I want to do things.
Yeah.
It's that feeling that drives an individual and collectively, therefore, then drives a country. And I think where people are at the moment, it's like you get up in the morning and think, oh, God, I've got another day I've got to get through. And so that's what we need to go back to. If you heard my speech on Saturday, no reason why you should.
I've heard it. I actually watched it.
Did you?
I did watch it.
Yeah.
I did my research for this.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah.
But, one of the comments I made was that we define our culture often and correctly by reference to our national heroes, Nelson, Winston Churchill, Waterloo, Duke of Marlborough. But behind every national hero were hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of working class folk who were prepared to lay down their lives for this country. All the way from the 100 Years' Wars against the French, which we enjoyed so much, we kept the wars going for 100 years. The working class, the longbowmen who come from the working class, obviously loved it. They just kept that war going. All the way through history, we built this country on the backs of the working class. We must not forget that. And the other thing that's crucial, and I find this remarkable about politicians, it's almost as if turkeys don't know what's good for them. The majority of the people in this country are working in middle class. They're not the people on the dole. Not yet. They're not the majority. People on benefits. And it's not the ethnic minorities and so on. It's the white working and middle classes. And if you're in politics, you've got to think about the majority interest. That's what matters. But they've been hijacked. We roll off our tongues as if it's perfectly understood that we are a liberal democracy. We go, yeah, we're great. We're a liberal democracy. If you just entertain me a little bit on this point, liberalism stands in opposition to democracy. Liberalism is the championing of the individual's rights, and it's correctly, if it's in balance, putting some controls on the majority interest to make sure that the individual isn't overrun by the majority's interest.
Okay.
So that you have a genuine ability to be what you wish to be. So that even if the majority are white, working and middle classes, you as an ethnic minority and me as an ethnic minority won't be rolled over by what's going on. That's liberalism. Democracy is the majority interest. And liberalism is out of control. It's on steroids. Democracy has been set aside. Politicians no longer represent the people, which is where you started this question with.
Yeah.
You said the working class feel completely rejected. It's because politicians have cloaked themselves in this false virtuous cloak of liberalism, saying all things liberal are great. So we will bring in lots of foreigners. We'll bring in lots of different cultures which are antithetical to our own. We'll put a protective blanket around them because we're liberal. We want them to have the right to hold these beliefs.
Yeah.
We'll protect them. We'll give them our jobs. We'll give them housing ahead of us. We'll give them benefits ahead of us. We will set our own majority interest aside. Liberal democracies, when they're working well, have liberalism and democracy in balance. Democracy has somehow fallen. We are just a dictatorial, liberalist society now. So we have peculiar form of liberalism where a man can now identify as a woman, and because he has done so, liberalism protects him, and he can go into spaces where women would otherwise have been safe and effectively threaten women. Now, women were made safe in large part because of the initial movement of liberalism. Liberalism has gone so mad, it is now setting aside all the good work it did to put women front and centre. So we've got to push back against it. Advance UK will stand, as I said in our mission statement, is the restoration of our democracy, which means recognising that we stand for the working and middle classes. We've got to cut welfare, we've got to cut taxes, we've got to deregulate, we've got to create aspiration, get rid of dependency, wealth creation, not wealth redistribution, give people the tools with which they can improve their lives.
I think that's good. I think that's very good. Very good. Final question. If you could bring one world leader from the past back, who would it be?
Oh, my goodness. So Winston Churchill obviously is a go-to for all things, but Winston was a great war leader. Maggie's not right for this time. Maggie understood the economic threat. I think Maggie.
They haven't got to be English. They could be from anywhere in the world.
Oh, anywhere in the world.
Anywhere in the world.
Anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
But applied in a British context.
Yeah. You bring any world leader you want from back in the past who you think could come to the UK today. And
I think I would bring back William Pitt the Younger, who set this country on a phenomenal path, towards the end of the 18th century.
No, I'd have gone for Genghis Khan. Bring him back. Solid guy, doesn't suffer falls. He's not a liberal.
Yeah.
He'll just take care of stuff, man.
Yeah, he would certainly take care of stuff. I think 25% of the world's DNA
traces back to Genghis Khan.
So he was prolific.
Prolific,
if we're concerned about procreation.
A real man.
A real man.
Ben Habib, thank you so much.
It's great seeing you.
Absolute
Thank you
pleasure.
for having me on.
Thanks for coming in. Well, I hope you enjoyed that special Daily Expresso with Ben Habib. Leave your comments below, like, share, and subscribe. Send it to your mates. Tell your friends about us. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.